It seems that George Kambosos Jr. is not looking to make a fight between Devin Haney no time soon. But if that option fails, it looks like Devin Haney could be potentially fighting Gary Antuanne Russell at 140 pounds. And this makes for a very dangerous fight for Devin Haney. Let's talk about it in this video. King Jr. got another video for y'all. Sorry guys about the delay for not making any videos. I'm back on track again. I'm just almost finished with my setup, but I can't go any more days without making a video. I'm gonna be back consistent and try to continue to make videos and try to upgrade my setup. But anyway, guys, we have some very interesting news. We know the situation with George Kambosos Jr. and Devin Haney. George Kambosos Jr. is pressing Devin Haney that the fight needs to happen in Australia. But Australia is not willing to open up at 100% capacity. Their capacity is at 50%. If you go on any website or any boxing website like Boxing News 24, coming from reports that Australia is not at 100% capacity, and even if they try to stage a fight there, you won't be able to get a whole bunch of people because apparently the COVID is bad out there in Australia. So it makes no sense why George Kambosos Jr. is just trailing his feet. George Kambosos Jr. from the beginning stated that he's a man of his word. It's not about the money or anything like that. He just wants undisputed and legacy. But ever since George Kambosos Jr. has those belts, he's starting to have Teofimo Lopez tendencies. George Kambosos Jr. says that Devin Haney needs to sell his jewelry because you're going to have to pay me the amount of money to fight you, and I want the fight in my backyard. A lot of people feel like that Devin Haney is going to get robbed in Australia. I don't think that's the case. If he does get robbed in Australia, the boxing world is going to have a uproar if he fails. But with that being said, this guy we have on the screen is Gary Antonio Russell. This guy is very, very underrated. He has 14 wins, no losses, no draws, 14 wins by knockout. He's 25 years of age. This guy has a very known name. He beat Jaron Boots Ennis in the amateur 3 times. Jaron Ennis beat him 1 time. Gary Antuanne Russell was into interview he was in an interview stating that he was competing for Golden Gloves in his family of a record of 90 years ago, and Gary Antuanne Russell was in the losing bracket when he lost to Jaron Ennis the first time, and he beat him, came back, fought his way up, and beat Jaron Ennis twice. Well, then he beat him another time. So Gary Antuanne Russell is a very disciplined boxer. He stopped Matt. I think his name was Santiago, and it's Giovanni Santiago in his last fight, and in beautiful fashion. And now Devin Haney said that reason why Gary Antuanne Russell wants Devin Haney is Devin Haney says that Mr. Catman lost to a bum. We all know Gary Russell lost to Mark Maceo. If you want to say Mark Maceo won a fight, I have no problem with that. I feel like Gary Russell took Mark Maceo to school because Gary Russell was trailing with one hand and he was showing his boxing ability with one hand is defensively. But at the end of the day, a lot of people was agreeing that Mark Maceo won the fight because of CompuBox. You can't believe anything what CompuBox says because CompuBox is just a guy that's clicking a button with punches. But with that being said, I don't want to get into it, but if you feel like Mark Maceo beat Gary Russell, I'm cool with it. I feel like Gary Russell win the fight. That's just my opinion. But Gary Antuanne Russell didn't like what he said that Devin Haney said to his brother. He's like, look, you when you come out to 140, you got to see me. And I think it's a very dangerous fight for Devin Haney. I think that Gary Antuanne Russell don't need to fight Devin Haney at the moment. I'm not saying he don't have to right now. I'm just saying Gary Antuanne Russell still needs to build himself up. Gary Antuanne Russell is going to be fighting Victor Postol on the Chris Colbert versus, I forgot who Chris Colbert is fighting. I keep forgetting, but for the vacant WBA, I believe this guy should not be a co-main event anymore. He should be having his host his own card. But the Russell brothers have some bad luck with business and stuff like that. But Devin Haney will have some heat up there waiting for him. A lot of people wants to see Devin Haney versus Regis Prograis. I feel like that's a dangerous fight for Devin Haney, and I feel like Gary Antuanne Russell was a very dangerous fight for Devin Haney. A lot of people see that Gary Antuanne Russell will stop Devin Haney within 6 rounds. I don't think that's the case. I still have Devin Haney beating Gary Antuanne Russell. Gary Antuanne Russell is a tough fight for anybody, but I think Devin Haney boxing ability, tendency, stay focused in the fight. I think that he can edge it out against Gary Antuanne Russell. He's going to have to stay away from his power. But if you look at Gary Antuanne Russell does a lot of things better than what Devin Haney can do. I still have Haney winning the fight. I think it's going to be a nip and tuck fight. But if Devin Haney gets caught with a big clean punch, I don't know if he's going to react. We've seen Jorge Linares hit him clean, and he took it pretty well. But Gary Antuanne Russell has a different type of power. He's a very good, beautiful body puncher. He has a very good amateur background, and now he's having a good professional background. I think this dude is just a dangerous fight for Devin Haney. And I think that if the Kambosos fight don't happen, let's see this fight. I wouldn't mind seeing this fight. A lot of people have Gary Antuanne Russell over Devin Haney because people feel like, okay, you're talking about Gary Russell losing to a bum, but if you fight Gary Antuanne Russell and lose, we're going to have the same scenario for you. But at the end of the day, with the whole Gary Russell situation, I'm not going to get into it. I feel like Gary Russell Jr., Mr. Gary Russell Jr. should have fought Devin Haney. He took the 1.5 million. But Gary Russell Jr. chose to pass the torch to Mark Macedo and took less of the money. He took $500,000. He made $500,000 in his last fight. Mark Macedo made $175,000. So you just passed the torch to a Manny Pacquiao fighter. And now they're going to build Mark Macedo as the next Manny Pacquiao. I don't think he will be. I think Manny Pacquiao Jr. is going to be the next Manny Pacquiao because Manny Pacquiao Jr. fights just like his dad, but he's still up and coming, rising. I don't think Mark Macedo is the next Manny Pacquiao. I think he's a decent fighter, but if he gets in a ring with Gary Russell Jr. again, I don't think he wins the rematch. But with that being said, guys, Gary Antuanne Russell. If Kambosos is keep playing around, not wanting to make negotiations, and Eddie Hearn is willing to give him the biggest bag, and Kambosos wants to mac himself out, and they can't make the fight happen, be looking for Gary Antuanne Russell versus Devin Haney. It's a very dangerous fight for Devin Haney. It's a winnable fight for Devin Haney, but it's a very dangerous fight. You guys might need to watch this fight between Victor Postol and Gary Antuanne Russell. If Gary Antuanne Russell stopped Victor Postol, that's a statement. That's a big statement because Victor Postol got in the ring with Terrence Crawford, even though he got dog walk, but Victor Postol never gotten stopped. But at the end of the day, guys, it is what it is. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. This is your boy King Jr. I'm out of here. Peace.